Hey, comic lovers, E-Money and the old man back with you again for another episode of Back Issues. Alright, so we got a pretty interesting show today, a little bit different. Today, we are giving our review of The Batman. Also, we have our comic reviews and previews, and then, look what came in the mail today. We have another CGC shipment ready to unbox here for you. Alright, so remember, never tell the villain anything or assume he knows anything until he actually says it. Bruce. This is Back Issues. Alright, comic lovers, so before we get started today, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, give us a thumbs up, and if you like, leave us a comment. You can tell us what you think of our comic reviews or our movie review, as we're about to see.
Or you can just tell them how good looking you think the old man is.
Okay. Alright, so this past Sunday, the old man and I took a trip out to our local theater and we saw the new film from DC Comics, The Batman. Alright, so this is obviously Robert Pattinson's first outing as the Dark Knight, and brand new universe here. It's just like Batman Begins, pretty much. Hopefully new movies on the horizon. Hopefully it's good enough to have new movies on the horizon. So what do we think, old man?
Well, Batman movies always depend on the villains.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of you are going to hate me. Now they'll leave comments, you watch. I never cared for Heath Ledger's Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Good villain, but not the Joker.
I mean, I talked about this with some friends last night. Heath Ledger, his portrayal as the Joker, it was an incredible villain. A once in a lifetime portrayal of this character. Never seen it before. We'll never see it again. But to the old man and I, it was not the Joker.
No, Joker doesn't go around going. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, I look at the villains differently than a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were 3 villains in this movie. We'll start with the one who...
I would argue 2, but...
So I'll start with the arguable one.
Okay.
Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
She's a cat burglar. She's a thief. Villain.
Yeah.
Just because Batman ends up being in love with her at some point in the future, it's irrelevant. She's still a bad guy.
Mm.
Now, she was not the classic Catwoman. She was the modern Catwoman.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably as close to the comic book portrayal as it's gotten in recent years.
Oh, the current comic book character, yes, dead on.
Was Julie Newmar and Eartha Kitt, were they accurate for their time?
Yes.
Or was that okay?
For that era, yeah.
Okay, so they were accurate to the comic books at the time. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, she was totally removed from the comic books because she was just a psychopath, pretty much.
Interesting,
she was driven to the edge after her boss tries to kill her, and she just goes completely insane. That's not Catwoman.
Right.
Catwoman is a cat burglar. She steals, she doesn't kill. And she's definitely not insane. I mean, some people might argue she's insane, but not to that extreme.
All right, so moving on to the next villain, the Penguin. Danny DeVito's Penguin was a travesty.
Mm-hmm.
Not Danny's fault. He played the character the way he was directed to play it. But it was horrible.
Yeah. He is not some, sewer-dwelling monster that, rides around in a giant ducky in the comics.
And he's also, although I love the Gotham version of the Penguin, that really wasn't it either. It was closer, much closer.
And
but,
again, the Adam West version, accurate for its time.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Umbrella's, Penguins, toys, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
But this guy, who was the actor?
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell, which I didn't realize is how good a job they did the makeup.
Mm-hmm.
He is a crime lord.
Mm-hmm.
He runs a illegal underground casino.
The Iceberg Lounge.
He is a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
He's in it for the money,
Mm-hmm.
period. perfect portrayal.
Mm-hmm.
He looked right, he acted right, he was written right. Just as good as you're ever going to get for the Penguin.
Mm-hmm.
No umbrellas, no penguins.
I wouldn't mind the umbrella so much.
It depends on how they used it.
Yeah. If you ever played the Batman Arkham games, the Penguin is really well done in that one too, and he's pretty close. I mean, he didn't have the thick Cockney accent that they had in the Arkham games, but still, pretty well done.
I don't know why he would have that kind of an accent anyway. But at any rate, now for the big villain, the Riddler. No, he didn't have the classic costume you saw Jim Carrey wear. But he was evil, which is a kind of a new uptake for the villain of the Riddler, because for years he was more of just a kind of a clown, just having fun. This guy's deadly.
Mm-hmm.
All the riddles are there. About half the time in the comics, I could figure the riddles out.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't figure these out.
Well, I figured out the Justice one. That might be the only one I got.
But, and he's intense, which you need villains like that to bounce off of Batman's intensity. So I thought the villains, as a set, extremely well done. And I can't imagine how you could do any better.
Well, for the Riddler, like for one, the costume. It's like I wasn't expecting like a full-on, Jim Carrey outfit and whatever the guy's name was in the Adam West show. But I would have,
Frank Gorshin.
Frank Gorshin, that's it. So I would have liked to have seen like some kind of compromise on the costume because, you say, Heath Ledger wasn't the Joker to you. This guy didn't quite feel like the Riddler. I mean, I would have liked to have seen like
question mark on
question
the back
mark, like maybe a green instead of the whole black suit when he was in his disguise, something like that. Some sort of middle ground.
As long as it wasn't bright green, I'd have been okay with it. But at any rate.
And also a problem I had was in the comic books, the Riddler, as Batman villains go, he is probably one of the calmer and more rational of his villains. This guy was just kind of off the wall insane. It felt like.
Well, you got to figure anybody who does what the Riddler does has got to have some psychosis. And this guy did. I thought it was well done. I can't complain about any of the villains. Now, are you ready to address the elephant in the room?
Okay, which elephant is that?
That would be the Robert Pattinson.
Oh,
elephant.
okay.
I am not now. It's hard to say I'll never be a fan of Robert Pattinson because I like the Batman. But I'll never forgive him for Twilight. He played a sparkly vampire, not his fault.
I mean, if you're handed a bad script to have a bad director, and they're giving you the money, I mean, you're gonna do what they tell you to do.
Okay.
So I can't really blame him or Kristen Stewart for the Twilight movies.
I always will. Now,
okay.
The Lighthouse. Everybody talks about the Lighthouse.
I always say the Lighthouse. Everyone who complained, like, hopefully they're not complaining anymore, but anyone who complains about Robert Pattinson being Batman because of Twilight, go see The Lighthouse.
I mean, it was a terrible movie.
I mean, it's not good for entertainment, but if you want to get a sense of what Robert Pattinson can do as an actor, watch The Lighthouse, and you will not be in doubt anymore.
No doubt, he did a good job with the performance in the horrible movie. But his Batman, let's get to the point.
Okay.
A lot of the guys who played Batman have done a good job, but there's some problem, like Michael Keaton. He didn't look right in the cowl. He has puckered lips, and he made his face look round. So, don't know if that was more the design of the cowl or if it was his face. I don't know. This Pattinson is Batman. That jawline, when you get a close-up of his face, dead on perfect. Couldn't ask for better. The costume, dead on perfect. Couldn't ask for better. If people ask me, who's your favorite Batman? I'm still going to say, if you want the older Batman, it's Ben Affleck. But now I'm going to have to add, if you want the younger Batman, it's Robert Pattinson.
Okay.
Now, I did have a negative, which you have to assume I will. Was talking about Bruce Wayne.
All right.
The trilogy.
Dark Knight trilogy.
Actor.
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale, and a lot of the guys look good as Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
They did the tuxedo. They went out to the galas. They had a good-looking girl on each arm, which serves a purpose. It makes people not suspect Bruce Wayne of being Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Batman obviously comes from someplace with a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got to be a bankroll behind him.
I mean, Catwoman even said in the movie, like, I don't know who you are under there, but you obviously grew up rich.
Right.
So
if you don't play the fool to a degree, a week from now, everybody on Gotham's going to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular movie, when he was Bruce Wayne, he wasn't Bruce Wayne.
Mm-mm.
He was Batman who took the costume off.
Pretty much.
I mean, he always looked dark, grungy, brooding, hair down on his face, which maybe is a hairstyle. I'm kind of old school. I thought it looked terrible. But he never, to me, played Bruce Wayne.
And you know the problem with that is that so many times in these movies when they reboot a franchise, they want to try to remove themselves from whatever the guys did before them. So, Christian Bale in the Dark Knight trilogy, he was always, walking around as, when he's Bruce Wayne, he's walking around with, the two girls, taking them out to nightclubs and restaurants and, making sure the paparazzi is taking pictures and everything because, you're trying to remove suspicion from yourself. Well, these guys, it's like they didn't want to do that and they wanted to take it in another direction. It's like, but that's the way it's supposed to be. Forget about, trying to be different from these other guys. Just do it the way it's supposed to be done. Which the guys before you, they did that part right. So do it right here.
Well, for the most part, dead on. Andy Serkis as Alfred. He can be my Alfred, I'll tell you right now. I mean, I thought he was great. He showed that you could see a scar on his face. Does Serkis have that scar, or is that makeup?
He might.
Okay, but whatever. It made him look like he seen battle. It made him look like the way I like Alfred, where push comes to shove, he can back you up. He can take care of himself.
Right.
Which is the Alfred that I like. The guy who played Commissioner Gordon, his name slips my mind. I've seen him in other stuff.
Jeffrey
Wright. Good job. Excellent job. He wasn't commissioner yet, but just good part.
Okay.
I can't think of any performance in that movie that I didn't think was as good as it could possibly be.
Okay.
So, in spite of the few negatives, it's a good movie.
All right. So, I think two things, and then we're going to get to the final score here. How about that cameo near the end? The unseen.
I don't know. We want to talk about that. Let's leave something.
Okay. All right.
There is a cameo at the end.
Yeah, and setting up stuff for the next movie.
I wish they'd skip it, but okay. I mean, move on. The Batman has one of the largest and finest rogues gallery of any comic book character out there. His rogues gallery is better than most 3 characters. I mean, he's loaded. Let's use some of them. Not the same ones all the time. Use somebody different.
Yeah, I've always said the only 2 heroes that come close are Spider-Man and the Flash. But Batman's still number 1.
Absolutely.
And I was telling you earlier how I'd like to see Clayface in a movie. We've never seen him in anything.
We almost had an argument over that because I would only want Clayface if he was kind of like Spider-Man's chameleon. The modern Clayface can turn into a house. I mean, the size possibilities are ridiculous.
I mean, it would be similar CGI-wise to Sandman in Spider-Man.
And I don't particularly care for the way they did Sandman. Yeah. But anyway.
All right. So one complaint, I was talking to some friends last night about the movie. One complaint they had was that you see too much of Bruce Wayne in the Batman suit, and that it kind of takes away from the impact when he puts on the suit, because he's in it like every scene almost.
Well, if they were to take him out of some scenes, you wouldn't have him walking around crime scenes with the police.
Right.
Which,
I mean, he
I was
probably
torn on that.
He probably has one of the best. I mean, other than that one scene, there was one scene where he didn't, but he has probably one of the best relationships with the police in this movie that he has in any other movie.
Absolutely. I mean, you can tell some of them are comfortable with him.
Right.
But there's one scene when he goes back to a crime scene,
Mm-hmm.
and he has a one-on-one with one police officer. When you watch the film, tell me you don't like that scene.
Right.
I thought that was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And not a whole lot of dialogue.
Nope.
Thought it was great. At any rate, I don't want to spoil
All
too
right.
many things for
Yeah.
those of you who had stuck with us.
I mean, I think
You're going to put the spoiler alert
Right.
before the start.
Mhm.
Right? Okay, hope
I
you
mean,
did that.
my friends and I, we talked for like probably an hour about this last night, so we could go on for days probably. All right, so what is the final score for the Batman?
Well, let me explain.
The old man and I, last time when we reviewed Spider-Man, we diverged. I gave it a perfect score. He gave it 3.5.
That
So,
doesn't happen very often.
yeah, we came to a consensus this time, and it's our final score for both of us.
Let me explain real quick. Comic books, we use 5 shields. In movies, because we've been doing it longer than we've written comic books, we started out and have kept a 4 popcorn rating. So, also be known that I've never given a movie more than one. In any given year, I've never scored more than one movie with 4 stars. Never been 2 in the same year. 4 stars are ridiculously hard to get. And this movie is not a 4-star movie. A few things like the length of the movie I thought was a little unnecessary. They could have trimmed 20, 30 minutes out of it. But I'll keep the end result.
Okay.
We'll keep it. But I was torn between a 3 and a 3.5 popcorn movie. But we finally came to the agreement that, yeah, that's a 3.5.
3.5 popcorns out of 4.
Which is also a very rare score for us to give a movie.
Yep. All right. So that does it for the Batman review. And if you have other opinions to share, leave it in the comments section. All right. So we're gonna clear the table here. Let's flip it over into our comic reviews. All right, so if you've never watched this show before, we grade our comic books a little differently than the movies. We grade them on a 5-shield rating system. We each give it 2 scores, one for writing and story, the other one for artwork. And then we combine the 4 scores together and give it an average overall score. All right, so we have mentions this week. We don't always call them honorable mentions because sometimes we might have something bad to say about them.
Not this week.
Yeah, I mean, everything was okay at least.
All right, so first of the 2 books we're going to mention this week. I've always loved Marvel's What If books.
Mm-hmm.
It excited me when I found out they were going to do a TV show. But some of the What Ifs back in the day were incredible. This one is okay. It's not great. But this is What If Miles Morales became Captain America.
All right, so if you're probably familiar with how the What If stories work, and this one, this series, it's all about Miles. So the first one, Captain America. So first of all, his uncle is pretty careless with a super soldier serum,
which I don't understand how he was able to make off with. Wouldn't you think there'd be some really tight security on a jug of stuff that's either going to kill you or turn you into a super soldier? Come on.
You would think so. But anyways, Miles goes looking for something to drink, and he
just in the fridge in a jug.
Yep. I mean, a bottle that size, even if you don't know what it is, wouldn't you think it's for someone specific? Just gonna take whatever's in the
you're a
fridge.
teenager. You just drink that stuff.
Okay. So anyways, Miles becomes a super soldier. So just like Captain America, or Steve Rogers' Captain America, he has a sidekick by the name of Falcon. But unlike original Captain America, he is dating his Falcon. So, a little different there. And then, some things that never change. His uncle ends up being the Prowler.
Which, in the Miles Morales Spider-Man book, his uncle
Right.
is the Prowler.
So, Miles, unknowingly, is set out to stop the Prowler, who he, will soon discover is his uncle. So we get a little preview at one point as to what we can expect in future issues, and it looks like we're going to get a Miles Morales Thor, which I guess he just picks up Mjolnir one day. Miles Morales Wolverine, and if he's not already a mutant, I don't know how he becomes Wolverine, but anyways. And then also you have a Miles Morales Hulk, which I guess he gets exposed to gamma radiation. Any one of these things can happen to old Miles.
Well, I think Wolverine's next.
All right, so Miles Morales, Captain America, #1, our mention for this week ends up with
3.5 shields after we rounded it up.
3.5 shields out of 5. All right, next up.
All right, next up. If you read a lot of Marvel books, you understand that Doctor Strange kicked the bucket recently. Stephen Strange is, I don't want to say no more because it's a comic book.
Right.
He could be back tomorrow. But for now, he's dead. And his wife, Clea, has assumed the role of Sorcerer Supreme. So they started a new book, not called Doctor Strange, it's simply called Strange, #1.
Because, she don't have her doctorate, last I checked. All right, so Clea is settling into the Sanctum Sanctorum, assuming the new role of Sorcerer Supreme, when she gets a knock at her door. And wouldn't you know it, it's good old Victor Von Doom. So Victor Von Doom, he makes his way in, and they sit down to have a little chat. And, Doom, with all his high and mighty attitude, says, with Stephen Strange dead, I, of course, will be assuming the role of Sorcerer Supreme.
I think that was a little arrogant. What do you think?
What? Doom? Arrogant? What? No. Well, in any case, Clea just kind of sits down on the couch and sips her tea and is like, yeah, no.
That was actually a good panel. Yeah.
And, Doom looks at her like, no. It's like, yeah, Steven was my husband, and, with him dead, the role of Sorcerer Supreme falls to me. And Doctor Strange is exasperated, and he just looks at her like, that's not how that works. And, Clea just kind of sits there and she's like, really? Well, here I am wearing the cape. I got the amulet here. I think that is how it works. And, Victor does not take it well.
And I'm betting we haven't heard the last of it.
So, any issue that sort of puts Victor in his place, I'm always a bit of a fan of. So, Strange, #1, ends up with 3.5.
Yeah, no rounding involved.
3.5 out of 5. All right, that does it for our mentions this week. Now on to this week's. This week it's the top 4.
All right, so I know this is going to be a shock to y'all. There was a tie for #2. So, 3-way tie. So, we kicked around a few ideas of how to break the tie, who was going to set the order for those 3 books. And all of a sudden, E-Money comes out of our little storage room carrying a set of 3-dimensional chess. I have not played 3-dimensional chess 25 years. In fact, I don't think I've played chess in 20 years. But at any rate, I didn't even know we had a 3-dimensional chess set. I don't know how you knew that, and I didn't know it in my own house.
This house still has its secrets.
And I didn't know E-Money knew how to play 3-dimensional chess. I mean, we used to play Nightmare Chess. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
Card game, that was fun.
I got, I didn't get sent home, but I was told not to bring it back to school one time.
Yeah, his school was kind of strict about stuff like that. But at any rate, so we set the board up. I didn't remember how to set the board up, to be honest. I had to look at the directions. But he won. I mean, goes from somebody that I would have bet didn't know how to play to beat my ass.
All right. So, we ended up with 4 this week. So what do we have for our number 4 pick?
All right, number 4. DC's number 5 of a 12-issue maxi series, Dark Knights of Steel.
All right, so in this issue, well, in a previous issue, Jor-El has been assassinated, and so we are the kingdom is scrambling. And also in a previous issue, it seemed that Zala, Kal-El's younger sister, had assassinated Jefferson Pierce, King Jefferson's son, I guess it was Jefferson himself, and she's claiming her innocence on that, and I thought that she had gone nuts and killed him, but apparently no. I mean, there's all kinds of.
Could just be lying.
Could be, but it seems she's sincere, and all kinds of shapeshifters in this world, so could have been anybody. And I just want to point out that in this medieval setting, is like you're trying to assign roles in a medieval setting to characters from DC Comics. When you got Harley Quinn as the Jester, like that's some pretty low hanging fruit that you picked out there, right? Okay, all right. So later on in the issue, Bruce confesses to Cal about his true heritage, and that he is his half-brother. I think, Jor-El had an indiscretion with Bruce's mother. And Cal does not take it as well as Bruce was hoping he would. So, the rest of the issue, it's like Bruce kind of steals Cal's origin story in classic comics. So the story is going to go from there in the next issue. So Dark Knights of Steel, a really interesting issue this month. Number 5 out of 12 ends up with 4 shields rounded up.
All right, number 3 from Image Comics. This book hits our top 3 or 4, however many, quite often. It's crossover number 12. Now, a couple of months ago, I started hearing that there was going to be something special about this issue. Yep.
All right, so hopefully you guys are reading crossover, because if you're not, what I'm about to say isn't going to make a whole lot of sense. So in the previous issue, in the final panel, Negan is revealed to enter the story.
From The Walking Dead.
From The Walking Dead. So in this issue, Negan comes, face to face with his creator, Robert Kirkman.
From Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much of this is accurate. If the Kirkman estate that's shown in this issue is accurate, to where he kind of creates like a Neverland Ranch sort of thing of his own creations. I mean, super cool if he has. I don't know. But anyway, Negan is none too pleased with Kirkman, because he wrote a shitty background for Negan, for his character. His wife dies of cancer during the zombie apocalypse, and Negan does all these shitty things early on in his story that most human beings wouldn't enjoy doing. So
he seemed to enjoy some of them, at least in the comics and the TV show.
And Kirkman's like, "You were a character I wrote. I didn't know you were real. Of course I had to write a shitty background. You were the villain." So these two have it out, and Negan, at the end of their confrontation, he actually expresses a bit of a regret for a pretty major thing he did in the Walking Dead comics, which I thought was a little surprising. So more layers to the Negan character there. So in the final pages of the issue, it looks like the story is wrapping up or building up towards a big confrontation between the heroes and villains, both real people and the comic book characters. So crossover number 12, our number 3 pick for this week, with 4 shields rounded up.
All right, next up, DC put out a little mini-series. This is number 1 of 2. It's going to be short. It deals with multiverses and a whole bunch of stuff that I don't really care a whole lot for, but it's called War of Earth 3.
War for Earth 3. But anyways, so on Earth 3, it has very similar characters, similar people to what we have. They have a Superman, they have a Batman, Wonder Woman, but they're not the ones that we know. They don't care about being heroes. They care about doing, whatever the hell they want. And a lot of that involves, ruling over Earth with an iron fist. So you have Ultraman, their Superman, who is obviously at the top of the pecking order. And then you have Owlman, who is their Batman, and a couple other people. Well, their version of Amanda Waller, at least I think it's their version, has rounded up a band of metahuman, superpowered beings, and she lets Ultraman know that she wants to talk to him. Well, Ultraman, he's dealing with his own stuff, and he doesn't want to talk to her, so he sends Power Ring Man, aka Green Lantern, down to deal with her. And Waller's people make short work of Power Ring Man. So then, not wanting to deal with it, and also because he's kind of mad at Owlman, he says, Owlman, you go deal with it. Well, sort of the same thing happens. Eventually, Ultraman, comes down to deal with Waller, and I don't know exactly what Waller has planned, but
it's something nefarious.
Whatever Waller does, she never shows her entire hand all at once. So makes her some interesting build up here. War for Earth 3, number 1 out of 2. Our number 2 pick for this week ends up with the 4 shields rounded up.
All right. Ready for the number 1 spot?
All right, let's do it.
All right. This is one of those books that hits our top 3 quite a bit. It's from Image, and this number 8 is, in my opinion, one of the best of the entire 8-issue run so far, and it's Nocterra.
All right. So in this issue, in this post-apocalyptic world where there's a everlasting darkness and all kinds of dark creatures running about, the villain by the name of Blacktop Bill cons his way into one of the outposts, and then does what Blacktop Bill usually does, and Bill somehow uses a device to connect with the psychic entity that is behind the everlasting darkness around Earth, and what he sees doesn't bode too well for us. It's like however bad it is now, it's gonna get exponentially worse. So Bill decides that he needs to switch up strategies if human beings have a chance of surviving. So he needs to say this to some people he recently considered enemies. So makes for some interesting dynamic coming up in future issues. So Nocterra, number 8, also great artwork here as well. Our number 1 pick for this week, coming in at 4 solid shields out of 5. All right, so what's coming up next week? Or this week, I should say.
This week, it's not as big a week as this last week was, but it's still pretty solid. We've got the next issue of the Joker. The Evil Army storyline that you like is continuing. Captain Carter gets her own book. Curious to see how that turns out. And to me, the big deal is the Punisher's back, baby. Punisher number 1.
Okay. All right, so that does it for this week's comics reviews and previews. Now let's flip it over and open up that CGC book. All right, so we have should have 1 issue in here from CGC. This is the other comic that we sent to have pressed, and that ended up being a mistake because pressing takes forever at CGC at the moment.
Yeah, this is just like the last book we got back, the G.I. Joe. We sent this in March of 2021. Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry, May of 2021. So it's been over 9 months, and as I said about the G.I. Joe, you can make a baby in 9 months. All right, so when we sent this off, in the left bottom corner, there was a big, just huge dent, which is why I had it pressed. The way it was, I would have predicted, maybe being generous, an 8.5. So, I mean, obviously any improvement over that would be good, but, you know, take a year. I feel like I should just get a little reward. I'd like to see a 9.4.
All right, so 8.5 previously, you want a 9.4 now. All right, so what issue is it? It is Thor God of Thunder number 25. This is the issue that first introduces Jane Foster as Thor. She's in a cameo in the final panel, a flash forward of her wearing the Thor outfit and lifting Mjolnir. All right, so you wanted a 9.4, you ended up with a 9.0.
I mean, it's better than a 8.5.
All right, so looks like still a little bit of a dent on the bottom left here. All right, so it says here it predates Thor number 1, which was Jane Foster's first full appearance as Thor. All right, so not too bad. And for those of you who have been watching us for a while, this will be available at our garage sale, our pop-up comic book shop, come this spring. You know, we've gotten a lot of great new inventory, both comic books, toys, and Blu-rays, DVDs, all kinds of new inventory for the sale this spring. We're really excited about it, so stay tuned for future info on that.
You know, we could just about set the booth up with nothing but new inventory.
Pretty much, yeah. All right, so yeah, this will be available there as well. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's episode. So what do we have coming up? Well, we have our next movie review for Morbius, which is supposed to come out next month, assuming it doesn't get delayed again. Also, if you're looking at the channel, just came out before this video drop, we have our comic book CGC unboxing from Comic Book World. So you can check that out. Pretty big collection.
They get some pretty cool stuff. When their CGC box comes in, it's like drill time.
Mm-hmm. So be sure to watch that. And we have our reaction video for Moon Knight at the end of this month. So all kinds of cool stuff coming out on the channel in the future.
With Moon Knight, I have great trepidation. I am concerned.
A little bit. All right. We'll see you guys on the next one. Excelsior.
True believers, if you're reading comic books, life must be good.